Tangent is the company. Solar energy, battery storage is the game. This is an open session for questions, so be ready to be on the spot. And right in front of me at the moment is Marion. Marion, what is your question for me?
At what point do we get the solar? So you're doing an extension, loft extension, and you're getting the roof done. At what point do we get someone like your company in to? Great question. So when you're doing a redevelopment, at what point should you involve us in the mix? Yeah. So what we'd suggest is talk to us early. It's very good for us to have met the builders and ideally the architect early on in the process, because sometimes quite small changes in the design make a huge difference to how many panels you can fit on. If we come in later, though, we can cope with that. And it's very often that we do come in later. We'll be asked by the builders late in the day. We've been asked by a builder recently who's already finished the house and they've suddenly realised they failed their SAP calculations. So we're now redesigning and making sure they can achieve that. Great question. Thank you, Marion. So next question for Amit.
Sure. Please could you maybe summarise how does a customer go about their journey, or what the customer journey is, your 3 simple steps?
Great question. So Amit's asking, what are the 3 simple steps, if you like, for a customer to start their journey with us? So we try and keep it simple. That's our strapline, Solar Made Simple. We ask you to come to our website, put in an application, and we'll have an initial conversation with you. And in that initial conversation, we'll find out what you want and why you want it, which is always so important. Next step is we'll do a free remote quotation. It'll be quite detailed, quite accurate. We'll use Google Maps and other satellite technology to measure your roof, and we'll give a precise, detailed quotation of everything that you're going to get. And at that step, you've got a price, you've got a deal, you can decide whether you want to go to the next step. So we keep it simple when we possibly can. David, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So what are the most common mistakes homeowners or business owners make when choosing or installing solar panels?
Good question. What are the common mistakes that homeowners make when installing solar panels, or business owners? Well, I'm not sure they do. They come in with very fixed ideas sometimes, but that's our job, is to guide them through those ideas and to help them understand what it means if they make certain choices. So people often people often overestimate how much solar they could fit on their roofs. That's usually the constraining factor for homeowners. And in fact, you mostly want as much solar as you can possibly fit. In terms of battery size, people misunderstand that all the time. So a battery can do several things. It can store your surplus solar power for you to use in the evenings. But nowadays, you can also do time of day charging. You can charge battery at cheap rates at night and use it during the day. So there's other ways to make money on it. So the important thing is to have the conversation. And very often when we go to a site survey, it's about half the time is surveying the site. The other half of the time is actually understanding, explaining, discussing all the different aspects, whether there's shading, whether there's enough energy use in the house to justify batteries. Those are the different questions that come up. So a question over here from Mike.
What's been the most challenging installation you've done to date?
Tough question from Mike. What's the most challenging installation we've done to date? I think possibly Enfield Town Hall. We had a job to put a lot of panels on a flat roof at Enfield Town Hall. Great site. We've got some great videos of that on our website. But the challenge was the building was relatively old. It had a cross-beamed concrete structure, and we needed to lift many tons of equipment onto that roof. So what we had to do was get approval from a building surveyor and structural engineer to show us the points where we could lower crane loads of weight onto the roof and then quickly distribute it. So we had to make sure that those loads landed on the strong points of the roof and we didn't cause any structural damage during that installation. Great question, Mike. Thank you. Natasha.
Have you heard of what do you think the psychological effects are of having solar?
Oh, great question from Natasha. What are the psychological effects of having solar? Well, we've spoken to an awful lot of customers, and I think everyone gets a real sense of happiness about solar. It's quite extraordinary, and it comes from a few different things. I think there's the whole climate change thing, where people want to do their part. It has to make economic sense, but they want to do their part and reduce their carbon footprint. But then there's a second thing that kicks in, which is particularly for the people that like data. They get their apps on their phones and they start looking at the data and they see, oh, for 3 weeks, I've taken no power from the grid. This is thrilling. My business colleague, Trevor, he's got a big system at his home, and he has about 3.5 months each year when he'll draw no power from the grid at all. And that's really exciting. That gives people a real boost. But obviously, saving money is often the driving force. And in our predictions of energy savings, we try and be really conservative. We don't overpromise, and we constantly hear back from customers that they've done better than we said they would, which is really cheering. So any more questions? Sharon?
What is your USP compared to all of your competitors? Why should people use you over somebody that comes knocking on their door?
Great question. Why should people use us? What's our USP? I would say there's a couple of main things. So one is knowledge. You know, we have two PhDs in the company. We're very technical, and we really can answer complex technical questions about off-grid, about emergency power systems, about what system's right for the person. I think the second big thing is that we are bespoke. So we always design a system to suit the client's situation, how much energy they actually need, what the shape and size of their house is. We're not a one-size-fits-all. So a lot of the larger solar companies will have what they've got in their warehouse and they want to sell that to you. We'll find out what works for you, and then we'll bring that to the table and see if we can make that work. I think the third thing is an absolute sense of responsibility. So within the relationship, we're the expert. So if there's a mistake, it's our fault. It's not your fault as the customer. So, you know, we'll do a fixed price quotation, and we'll genuinely stick to that. Mistakes are made, but they're our fault, not your fault. So it's our job to make sure that you get delivered what we've promised to you. We've extended that further. Maintenance is really taking off. So we're getting a lot of people who've perhaps had systems installed by companies that have disappeared who want help. We don't turn people away. We'll do maintenance for both domestic and commercial. So we keep going. We follow up. We make sure that you haven't just got a nice install on the day, but that it works over time. Thank you. I saw a question here from Cam.
Firstly, yeah. Secondly, how do you determine the size and power of the system?
Okay, good question from Cam. How do we determine the size and power of the system? So there's two sides to it. There's the solar side and there's the battery side. So solar, for domestic, it's almost always as much panels as you can fit on the roof. That's the best thing, subject to budget. So budget's the constraint there. For commercial, there's often a sweet spot where we're looking at how much of the power they generate they'd actually use themselves. And what you're wanting to do is maximize return on investment. So you might have a slightly smaller system where they're going to use more of the power they generate from a slightly cheaper system. Battery's a bit different. For domestic, if you're just using it to store your solar during the day, then it really depends on how much energy you use. If you're a high energy user, then you'll benefit from more batteries. But as I mentioned earlier, now with the new time of day charging and some of the very smart tariffs from companies like Octopus, actually much larger batteries can make sense for home, where you're actually helping the grid balance itself out. You're storing surplus energy there and you're reusing it at different times of day. So it's not a simple question, but it's a very good question. Thea.
When you've got pylons, you have magnetic fields. Do you have magnetic fields with solar panels?
So do we have magnetic fields with solar panels? It's an interesting question. So all things electrical have magnetic fields. Solar panels themselves are DC electricity, and DC is, if you like, a continuous state. It doesn't change. And so you have a magnetic field, but it doesn't fluctuate. When you have AC, alternating current, then you're getting a fluctuating electric field, and that results in a fluctuating magnetic field. So it has much more impact on other things around it. But anything, all of the components, like inverters that are put into houses or companies, are all CE rated. So they've all been tested to minimize emissions of any sort. So they're like any electrical good. they've been managed to minimise any magnetic fields. How are we doing on time? One more? Hakeem.
What is the usage of a solar panel?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
What's the lifespan?
The lifespan? Okay, good question. How long does a solar panel last? So we only install tier 1 solar panels, so from large established manufacturers that have a long track record. And they all come with 25-year production warranty. Some of them have slightly longer warranties, but they all have 25-year production warranties. Now, we've been installing panels for 7 years. In that period, we've had one panel failure, and it failed the day we put it up. So they are incredibly reliable. I mean, there's not a lot going on in them. They're just glass and silicon and trace materials. So there's no moving parts, so there's very little to fail in them. So they last a long, long time. Inverters typically come with a 5 or 10-year warranty, but they're much more accessible, much easier to replace if there's a problem later. And in almost all cases, we can give the customer an extended warranty if they would like it.
Jason, I have one question, please. They called me, they said you are qualified for the free solar panel from the government scheme. Is this true now? Because I asked them, I said, okay, before I give you my information or anything, send me information first from the government or anything. I will need to read and then see it. They said, no, you need to be signed first and then we will send you the...
Okay, good question. Is there free money available from the government, from Suki? So it sounds like if they're saying you have to sign up for something first, that sounds like a scam. I wouldn't do that. But there are some situations, particularly for people on low incomes and benefits, where they can get financial help for solar projects, for insulation projects. There's a whole lot of energy saving projects which do work like that.
Got one quick question. So, if a customer is looking for a solar installer, what are the red flags they should look out for to avoid working with the dodgy ones as opposed to working with the good ones?
Interesting question from Amit. What should people look out for to avoid disreputable installers? And I'm not sure that's easy to answer, actually. I mean, there's lots of good installers. I think time doing it is important. So a lot of electricians have come into this field and they think it's easy to do, and it's not. So if they've only been doing it for 6 months, don't give them a complex job. Solar is not as easy as regular electrical work. Trust your instincts. Get 3 quotes always. Ask around and see if they're giving you lots of information. I think one of the things we do is we itemise everything we're going to deliver, and so that perhaps gives you some security that we know what we're talking about. If an installer comes to you and gives you a line item and a single price, question a bit more deeply. Make sure that they know what they're talking about and exactly what you're going to get in your quote. I suspect I'm out of time. Well over. Thank you so much.